Hi, I'm Steve Pond from TheWrap. Welcome to our virtual Sundance Film Festival studio. And I'm here with the creators and cast of 892, director Abi Damaris Corbin, writer Kwame Kwei-Armah, and actors John Boyega, Nicole Beharie, and Olivia Washington. Welcome, everybody. And, congratulations on a very powerful film. I mean, Abi and Kwame, let's start with you, because this is a true story about Brian Brown Easley, who was a veteran who, I guess he didn't rob a bank, but he took hostages, but not to get money, to draw attention to the fact that the VA was basically cheating him out of his money. But how did you guys decide that this should be a movie? And Abi, what made you want to direct it?
Sure. Well, I read the article that came out by Aaron Gell, the really poignant, impactful one that was on Task and Purpose, and my heart broke open. I immediately read the whole thing and said, why haven't I heard about this? Why hasn't this story been told? And in it, I saw a pretty personal reflection of my dad's story. My dad's a vet as well and had gone through similar struggles. And I intimately knew that rage, that desperation that Brian went through. And so I reached out to Kwame and said, hey, this story's got to be told. Can we do it honestly together?
All right. Kwame, I mean, what made you want to be a part of this?
I wanted to dance with Abi.
You're a good dance partner, Kwame.
Thank you, friend. I wanted to dance with the righteous rage that Brian had dancing in his heart. I wanted to engage in a piece of cinematic art that could be a catalyst for a debate that might ask the question, why did he have to die? And how many more have to die until we do what's right?
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, for the actors, I wonder, is there an increased responsibility because you're playing people who either were alive or are alive? I mean, John, for you, do you feel a responsibility to sort of, do justice to Brian?
No, definitely. I think, especially in a story like this, in which him telling his own story in its true form was a part of this righteous rage. It was a part of his frustration in itself, and that doesn't, those echoes, the echoes of that frustration, definitely doesn't leave you when you're portraying a person, like that, because you also have to embody that same frustration. So definitely it comes with a responsibility, but I won't say a responsibility that it is sets you apart as the chosen one or anything like that. Just more so about the true representation, obviously, of Abi's creative direction, then at the same time Brian's truth, like the individual man.
Mm-hmm. So did you do research beyond just the script? I mean, did you talk to people who knew Brian and all?
Well, the process was quite quick, and I just came on and tagged along on the documentation and the endless work that Abi did. If you found these files on Abi's computer, you might have had her arrested. Amount of she had, it was so much, so filling. And as an actor, it's definitely inviting to have that information on you, so you and your director can connect, and then at the same time you can make a creative choice, and then we can start to build these arcs. And then thankfully, myself and Abi got a few moments before we started to sit down to talk about it and to know what we would do, like just breaking apart the film, the process, the audience, just more about what we're going to do with the man and his portrayal in this. And then one thing led to another, and we were just on set.
Right. Olivia, how about you? You play Brian's ex-wife. I assume she's still around. Was she available to you?
Again, such a quick process, and Abi and Kwame, I believe, also had the opportunity to speak with her. And because this is based on her, not actually her, there is a little artistic license that I believe Abi and Kwame took, but using her obviously as source material. And I was able to listen to some of the unfortunate transcripts that or conversations that she had with different investigators to really get an understanding of what little information she had and kind of move from that process. But yeah, so aside from the article, Abi just had so much, thankfully, so much information to share. So it was really great grounding.
Yeah. Nicole, how about you? You play a bank manager who was, involved in every minute of the incident. So what was your research like, and what were the keys for you?
Yeah, I think that we've all said it was moving rather rapidly, but Abi had a ton of information. There was a photograph of the woman that I'm actually playing, standing by the door with her arms crossed. And there was just that was the only actual image that I had of her, and just kind of spent a lot of time with that. And then I heard a little bit of a recording of one of the downloads from the 911 calls. So I just knew that I would try to match dialect and the physical and, the energy coming off of that photograph, and then all the other information that is what Abi had, but also what the script gave us, sort of as like a Bible, and just marry that together. It definitely had like a spirit of this is really happening in real time. You know what I mean? Like we just had to commit and be in the space. It was just John, Salinas, and I, and we just were in the space making it happen, and keeping it all alive. And with what he was doing, it was very real and very palpable. So the actual bank manager bit, just did a little bit of research for we kind of went in for one day and went through all the bits and pieces with an actual Wells Fargo employee, but there wasn't a great deal of time for that.
Right. So Abi, what I'm hearing from everybody is A, it was very fast, and B, you had mounds of research. So did you work for a long time before you went into production on the research and knowing everything you could?
There's a combination of things. One, like I mentioned before, I lived through parts of this with the VA, with my dad. The other side of it is that this was based on a true story. So we did connect with Brian's ex-wife, and she consulted with us on the film and the project, and we talked to others that were involved, and of course we're trying to respect their privacy because they have lives to live, and we don't want to push them into a spotlight unnecessarily. But they opened up their doors and said, hey, this is a story that needs to be told, and we want to show you our perspective on it. So the information that they shared, we tried to be as diligent as possible with. Kwame and I went to Atlanta as before we ever wrote a word on a page, to walk the same paths that Brian walked, to go into Brian's hotel room, to go into the Wells Fargo. We walked down the same path he would have taken to the bank with these apps that a lot of medical professionals use to understand mental illnesses, and to listen to them and get a sense of what it's like inside Brian's head in those moments. And of course, we can't ever fully understand that, but we can capture an essence of truth that then translates into each performance. And knowing that, yes, these people live, but there's so many others that are still living that need to not have to have the same story repeated 20 years from now. So we wanted to tap into those truths into our script.
And I would say, actually, Abi, that the hardest part of the research for this, because there was a draft of this where actually every single line was verbatim from all of the research that we did. It was 400 pages long, but hey, it was worth it.
It's like 150.
Yeah, 150. And for a while we were wildly excited about that.
Yeah, we were gonna make that movie, guys.
Get it past 149, but actually the hardest part of the research for me was that walk that we did from the hotel to the bank while listening to that app and trying to think about what Brian may have been thinking and what voices may have been in his head, and then trying to make sure that the portrayal, at least on the page, and John did this magnificently in actuality, was not a comment on where he was mentally, but was but tried to be honest and true to it. Because ultimately, it is his quiet, dignified, righteous rage that has us all sitting here today talking about it.
Right. I mean, I feel like, quiet and dignified also sort of sum up the presence that Michael K. Williams has in this movie. And, which I know was one of his last performances. I mean, a lot of his role is just talking on the phone to you, John. I mean, what was that relationship like for you?
Oh, it's brilliant because obviously I've been a big fan of Michael since I first started The Wire, then started watching him on Boardwalk Empire. So when Abi had initial fresh talks about who could potentially come in and play our guy, she had mentioned Michael, and I was like, "What's the point of mentioning any name after that?"
Yes.
Just try, if he will pull up, and then I'm in my trailer, I come to set, I'm in my trailer, and someone just opens my door and walks into, as if it's theirs. I'm like, who the hell? See the darkest silhouette, and it's Michael. They're like, "Oh, hey." I'm like, "Hey." He goes, "Oh, I thought this was my trailer." I'm like, "No." But I'm like, "Good to meet you," and that's how we first met, and we were just chopping it up about knowing each other's work. And obviously, me, I'm a baby in this game, so for anybody to even mention me in the slightest that they've watched the past projects I've done or anything, I'm like, and then talk less of somebody who played such an iconic role in my artistic inspiration as well as many others. So it was great to connect. But what was great is that Abi, we did theatre. Michael would still come in. Olivia came in on her day off, and we would do the same for each other, just to read those offlines to build that chemistry. So these phone calls weren't too hollow. And I think we have solid actors, actresses in this, man. We have actresses that would turn out 5 different versions of the same scene. Like, I know that Abi had a variety and a buffet of choices. Just based on, sometimes as an actor you're like, okay, let's try it in several different ways. Let's be softer. Let's be more engaged. Let's be more stern. That's the kind of art of what we do. And so we were able to just play with those different things and come to a clean conclusion on that.
Yeah. Olivia, for you, was it important when, a lot of your scenes or some of your scenes anyway, are on the phone with John? Was it important to, that you guys were physically there when you were shooting those?
There was never in question, like, not to show up. Like, having the opportunity to show up was just like an obvious duh, because to be able to connect, I mean, there is so much history between these two characters, and not having the time to connect beforehand, before you start shooting, to explore that history. So to be able to be in the same room as the person that you're on the phone with, instantly you can create, oh, okay, I can feel your presence. I know who I'm speaking to, like, and you can kind of build that in. And so having that available was just such a blessing. And then from an actor standpoint, being able to watch your scene partner, or watch how they digest certain information, and being at the bank was different than being in the house where we shot. And being hiding behind a tree, I think, was what I was doing on the FaceTime with Michael. Literally, I was shouting the lines behind the tree in a parking lot. But it was still like, this is the coolest thing that I've ever done. Being able to act with them, I was like, technically, we FaceTimed, Michael and I, but I was there with him in the same space. So I think being able to have that camaraderie together really created a level of, I don't know, tension and texture to the story that I think we were able to bring because of that.
Right.
That's really lovely to hear, because Abi and I made a decision about whether that should have been a phone call or FaceTime. I remember us about 3 a.m. in the morning going, nah, let's make it a FaceTime call. I think we got a note at one point saying, no, go back to a call. We went, no, let's make it FaceTime. Let's keep it live. So I'm really pleased that gave you your Michael Connect moment.
It did. Thank you. Thank you for
me. Across the board, it was such a gift to have actors that were willing to be there for each other, because we're a small film, we're a small budget, and we were punching above our weight in a lot of ways cinematically. Like we were ambitious, and it was something that you say, hey, I need all the actors to be there on the other end of a phone call, when usually it's a director or a script supervisor that has real implications across the board for production, for logistics, and to have actors who would just turn up and use the constraints of a small budget to their advantage so that we could capture the magic of those first moments between Estelle and Brian on camera, that fear of them never having met each other in the moment, and using those things that are a lot of time constraints of a small budget to bring the reality of the story to life. It was such a gift to have actors who turned up for each other, and creatives. I'm just so grateful for that.
Nicole, for you, was that camaraderie essential when you're shooting a movie where, I mean, your scenes, you're in this one room basically for a very tense hour and a half of the film?
I feel like I think it's been said that like it felt a bit like doing a play, It was sort of, we were working consecutively as well, right? We were kind of working chronologically, and all in that space together, building it, just working off of what was happening with Brian, working off of Selena's Rosa, and staying as honest as we possibly could and trying to stay in the stakes of it. So yeah, absolutely. The commitment, the dedication, and then also just, I don't know if anyone remembers this. This is crazy because it's just coming back to me. Do you guys remember the cricket? Does anyone remember?
Oh my gosh, yes, the cricket's in the movie.
There was also this cricket. I don't know how you guys managed to get any of the sound, but there was this cricket that was also a big part of the team. Constant, and it's one of those budget things, you know what I mean? Like when you're in a random space, you're like, all right, there's gonna be some strange things going on. But there was this cricket that would just always be going the minute it was quiet. It was just one of those funny things that we would all sort of bond over.
The cricket's in the movie.
The cricket, is it? I don't know that.
It is part of the Atlanta soundscape. You cannot escape it.
I didn't hear it, but I know it was definitely, he was a part of the ensemble.
Credit
Wait,
to
Abi
Abi.
is part of the Atlanta landscape.
Yep.
I love it.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm sorry we don't have a window with the cricket in it here. We could keep talking about this, but I know we're running out of time. So I'll just say, congratulations on a really powerful movie. And I hope a lot of people see it and take heed. And thank you all for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.